time for chapter 14 of Pugs of the Frozen North by Philip Reeve and Sarah McIntyre. Chapter 14 is the last chapter. It is the very end. And it is a shame when things come to an end. But sometimes when one thing finishes, that gives us a chance to start something new. And maybe we'll start another book after we finish this one. If you've got an idea of a book you'd like me to read, maybe you could let me know. Maybe I could read your choice. Or maybe I'll just choose something that I want to read. At the end of the last chapter, the children were in that sledge flying through the sky, being pulled along by 6 giant elk with huge tawny wings, and they were being pulled back to Snowdovia, back to where Sika's grandfather lay in that bed. And here's the first picture in chapter 14. There is Sika's grandfather, and there's Sika, so pleased to be home and to see him, and there's the Snowfather. So let's see what happens in chapter 14. It was midnight at the Po of Ice, and Grandpa lay dreaming. His bed was a sledge again, carrying him over the shining ice, under the glimmering green canopies of the northern lights. Suddenly he opened one eye. Was that wings he'd heard, passing over the sky, over the shop, settling on the snow outside? Somewhere a door opened, quiet as quiet, and a breath of cold stole into the warm room, tiny sounds of tiptoe feet on floorboards. Grandpa opened the other eye. "I thought you were a dream," he said. "I am not," said the Snowfather, filling the room like a kindly shadow and stooping to fit his bigness under the slope of the ceiling. "Then is my bed really a sledge?" asked Grandpa. "Am I at the top of the world again?" "No," said the Snowfather. "I have come south for a change. Helga Hammerfest and her bears will keep an eye on things at the pole while I'm away. Sika tells me that you wanted to see me again." "I wanted to come to you," said Grandpa. "I wanted to make that journey one last time, but I know I'm too old now for journeys. I shall make do with the stories of Sika's journey instead." "And I've got such stories to tell," she said, and she climbed up onto the bed to put her arms around her grandpa's neck. "So many adventures, such things we've seen, me and Shen." And they started to tell him. The Snowfather stood listening, and after a while Sika's mum came in, woken by the voices, and there they all sat the whole night long while the northern lights shone in very brightly through the windows, and Grandpa and Sika and Shen and the Snowfather shared their stories. And towards morning Grandpa fell asleep, still smiling at the memories of the things they'd told him. Deeper and deeper he sank into his dreams, and the sound of his snoring grew more and more faint, until at last it faded altogether, and they knew that he wouldn't wake up. And they sat still and quiet and sad for a while, until the Snowfather said, "Come." "Come where?" asked Sika's mother. The Snowfather opened the door on the far side of Grandpa's bedroom. The cold came into the room. He went round behind Grandpa's bed and he started to push it towards the open door. Shen and Sika ran to help. They didn't know why he was pushing, but they were sure he must have a good reason. And after a moment Sika's mum joined them too, and together the 4 of them eased the bed outside. It looked even more like a sledge, standing there on the glittering snow. The Snowfather stooped and scooped up a handful of the snow. He looked at it and smiled. "I thought so," he said. "What is it?" they asked. "It's my favourite of all the 50 kinds of snow," he said, and he breathed on the clump of snow that was in his hand, and it came apart in soft white flakes, and the flakes drifted into the air like loose feathers from an eiderdown. It took Shen a moment to realise what was strange about them. "They're falling upwards," he said. The flakes were too light to go straight up. Every breath of wind blew them off course, but they were definitely rising. And all across the snowy yard outside the Po of ice, more flakes were lifting, detaching themselves from the drifts and banks and whispering softly up into the sky. Like a blizzard in reverse, the upward falling snow poured up into the night, and the snow that was under Grandpa's bed caught against the slats and the underneath of the mattress and kept on rising, so the bed was lifted with it, turning and trembling like a boat that feels the tug of the tide. "Where's it going?" asked Sika. "He's going on that one last journey." "The one that he always wished for," said Mother. "That's right," said the Snowfather. "He's going to places that even I have never seen." "Goodbye, Grandpa," Sika whispered. Up and up the wild snow fell, a column of dancing flakes like the sparks from a cold fire, with the bed borne up in the heart of it, up and up, slowly dwindling into the heights of the sky where the northern lights danced so brightly. And Shen and Sika and Sika's mum joined hands and watched it go. The Snowfather watched them for a little while. Then he went back to where his sledge was waiting. Shen and Sika and her mum stood and watched the bed as it faded into the heights of the sky. Long after the bed was lost to sight, Shen and Sika and her mum still stood there, staring after it. The last flakes of the upside-down blizzard fluttered up around them, leaving the ground around the Po of ice with only a thin covering of ordinary snow. Suddenly Shen felt very lonely, because he knew that his adventure was almost over. Soon it would be time to leave this place. But then, as if she knew how he was feeling, Sika's mum put her hand on his shoulder and said, "I've been thinking, Shen. I think, if you want to, that you should stay here. You and your 66 pugs. I mean to open the Po of Ice properly again, and start a hot chocolate cafe, and rent out rooms to people who come to see the Northern Lights." And then Shen knew what his heart's desire had been all along. Not a new ship, but a new life, here in the cosy old, snowy old post office. "I can help," he said. "We could start a pug-powered parcel delivery service. And we'll use the treasure from the Snowfather's garden to pay for a new roof, and a new S, and a T, and an F." "Oh," said Sika suddenly, "the Snowfather!" And they ran to where the sledge had been, and there on the snow, in a sleepy heap, 66 pugs snuggled under a pile of fur and blankets. There stood Shen's treasure chest, and the other treasures they brought back with them, but the sledge was gone, and the Snowfather with it, back to his home at the North Pole. "He didn't even say goodbye," said Shen. "He didn't need to," said Sika. In the silence of the night they heard a soft drip, drip, drip. The fringe of icicles which draped the eaves of the Po of Ice were weeping meltwater tears. "There's a change in the weather coming," said Sika's mother. "True winter is going away," said Sika sadly. "It'll be just an ordinary winter now, and then spring again. There won't be another true winter for a whole lifetime." But Shen didn't feel sad, because at least he'd seen all those things, the kraken and the yetis and the 50 kinds of snow, and at least he'd gone to the top of the world and met the Snowfather. Now he was going to live here in this strange place amongst these funny stilty houses. He was going to come to know these hills and woods and fjords in all their different seasons and all their different moods, and maybe, when a lifetime had passed and true winter returned, he'd meet the Snowfather again. But until then, what a lifetime it was going to be. There's Snowdovia still under the snow, but look, they've got a pug-powered dune buggy and can you see the pugs on a desert island having a little holiday? Can you see the pugs putting a rubber dinghy along? And there they are at the top of the world. Oh no, at the South Pole, I think. Yeah, other side of the world. So that's how our story ends. If you liked it, Philip and Sarah have done other books. They did Cakes in Space, which is about a little girl who is on a long space journey, and she wakes up, finds all the people are still asleep, and there's terrible, terrible cakes in it, and a good robot. Oliver and the Seawigs, very good one there, about a boy who needs to go on a journey. And they did the Kevin the Fat Flying Dartmoor Pony ones as well. Have I missed any? Oh, what about the Jinx and O'Hare Fun Fair? They've done lots of books. What I'm saying, if you enjoyed this book, have a look at their other ones. They're pretty good. Thank you for listening so much. Remember, if you've got a suggestion for a book you'd like me to read, please let me know, maybe on Twitter, or you could send an email, or you could just phone the school and let them know. That would be fine too. Hope to see you all very soon. Until then, have a lovely day. Bye bye.